Good afternoon and welcome to another Kerfuffle showcase. I'm delighted to have Max here from Mutual today. Max Fuller, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Simon. Very good, thanks. I've read a little bit about you on your bad hair day or whatever it is on.
Now that is outrageous.
Chris Watkins. What's been going on? We've
been backstage for the last 10 minutes and you've just dumped that on me. That really is. You're paranoid now. Is that a very clever tactic to put me on the back foot?
It is indeed, yes.
Well, all I'll say is Strawhead was the one that really caught my attention there, but don't worry. Like Richard Nixon, I carry a long and extensive hate list, and I'll be getting to them in turn. Max, today we're here to talk about the UK's first pre-portal. Now, that sounds fairly exciting there. So talk to us. What is a pre-portal?
Well, as it says on the tin, it's essentially a registered buyer platform, a mutual registered buyer platform where agencies can put invite their registered buyers onto our platform, and then those registered buyers can see their market appraisal properties ahead of them being instructed.
Okay. And give us a bit of background about how you came to this.
Well, it's been a 5-year journey, to be honest. A eureka moment 5 years ago. My sort of background is banking and financial services, and then I moved into becoming a buy-to-let landlord and property developer over the time, and the mortgage broker, etc. So I've always had leanings towards property in one way or another, and came up with an initial idea that got a little bit of traction, but it was more towards building society and a mortgage idea, and then it morphed, and then it pivoted, and then it changed, and over a 5-year period I ended up with what we've now got. So it was as simple as that, as they say. 5 years have disappeared just like that. It's incredible. I think and Andrew Stanton mentioned in one of his interviews with Chris Watkin, that a lot of prop tech, it takes them 4, 5, 8 years in development. What takes them so long? But the reality is, you don't know what you don't know when you start out, and it's a long journey of finding out what works, what doesn't work, and all of those sort of things. So as it goes along, you then realize each challenge along the way, just as you meet it and you overcome it, the whole thing gets better and better and better, and that's how you get to a point where then you're ready, for launch.
It's always a bit unfair, isn't it? Minimum viable product sounds so unsatisfactory, and actually, just the work that's required to get something shipshape, in such a demanding marketplace these days, where there's very few. There's little forgiveness, isn't there, if you don't crack it first time there. It does take a huge amount of work, doesn't it, for the highly evolved market these days, the discerning client.
Yeah, and what you don't necessarily appreciate is the number of different avenues that you have to look at, whether that's marketing, compliance, web development, etc. There's a whole spectrum of areas which you have to meet challenges in as you go along the route. So
I get that.
It takes the time.
And talk us through the name Mutual. What was the thinking behind that? I mean, is it a Ron Seal Simon? That's a bit obvious, or is there a deeper meaning?
Yeah, it was purely the fact that the whole concept is about reciprocity, mutual benefits each to each and every stakeholder. So agents get to benefit through having an increased conversion rate and receiving your increased market appraisal leads. The buyers receive the benefit of being able to have a level playing field of opportunity, control of their experience, and the ability to see more properties sooner. And sellers get the opportunity to effectively have a look at what the buyer interest is ahead of actually either engaging with an estate agent in the first place, because we know that the journey for a seller can be quite a long process in deciding to sell. So they've got the opportunity to engage with the buyer interest ahead of getting a market appraisal from estate agents, and then instruction at a later stage. So each stakeholder gets different things out of it, but also give different things as well. So the agents, by inviting their buyers onto the platform and adding their market appraisal properties, buyers through recording their interest against those properties, and the buyers, around 60% of the buyers are next time buyers. Yeah. So what we're aiming to do is pull those into the journey and allow them to add their own properties ahead of engaging with an estate agent. They get to see their buyer interest, and then they pull through into a market appraisal for the member agencies. Okay. So everybody benefits.
I was going to say, can we work through each Sure. What do people do for the agents?
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
Sorry, I just said let's work through it each in turn. Can we just talk about specifically what does Mutual do for the agents themselves?
Okay, so it allows the agent to offer at market appraisal stage for their own market appraisal opportunities. It allows them the opportunity to offer the prospective clients pre-marketing of their property to a database of clients. It allows for the opportunity for those prospective clients to see the buyer interest for themselves through their own dashboard, and potentially, if they instruct that agent, the opportunity to maybe engage an off-market sale. So a discrete marketing and possibly a discrete sale to boot. So you've got three elements for the agent there that they can offer against what their competition can do.
Some of the most successful agents I've seen around the country have really nailed that discrete marketing element. Do you think that is a huge part of what you're trying to do? Do you think that deserves a wider exposure in the marketplace?
Absolutely. I mean, the element of off-market sale has been the domain of either the very rich or celebrities, generally speaking. This sort of democratizes that opportunity. And in a sort of a data-rich world, a lot of people actually want to retreat away from that to an extent. And, there's all sorts of personal reasons why people don't necessarily want to advertise the fact that they're selling the property, from a point of view of potential splits, in partnerships and divorces and, probate and even just, keeping it away from nosy neighbours and all of that sort of thing. So there's a whole host of reasons why you may want to do that. Plus, of course, the other advantage of doing that is that you get a second opportunity to launch your property if it hasn't sold in an off-market situation, to then launch it in the open market on the main search portals and have a second bite of the cherry in that regard. So
without it having obviously harmed it by going on first time and all the rest of it. Okay, that makes sense. And for the buyers, what's the benefit for buyers?
Well, the buyers, in my days as a property investor, etc., and I used to sit on a lot of agency databases, and invariably, it's not a great service in many ways for the buyers. You might get a flurry of activity initially, then it gets sporadic after a month, couple of months. By month 3 or 4, you're the forgotten man. And I've had it happen to me a number of times where you've been on a database, you've been walking down a street or whatever, and suddenly you see a property with a for sale or a sale board outside with sold subject to contract, and that property would have been an ideal one that you should have been invited to have seen, and you haven't been. Yeah. And general public's perception of that is that the agent has had a tickle in his back pocket, but that isn't the case generally. It's a case that either the CRM system or threw up first 5 or 6 or 7 names and the agent got a bite early doors or something. Yeah. But it's the customer perception that really sort of lingers in that whole essence. So the mutual platform provides a level playing field for all buyers. They're in control of their own process, and it actually takes a little bit of pressure away from the estate agents, rather than being responsible for phoning up a customer with a particular property. If those customers are in control of their own search and their own alerts, and they've notified their own interest on those particular properties, it actually becomes a less, how can I put it, certainly a less involved system for the agent. So they can have a little bit more quality and a little less, sort of running around on the hamster wheel.
And probably the most overused phrase in agency, isn't it, when you're talking about between agents, at least talking about all the tire kickers that are out there. In terms of it, that's a very real perception and indeed reality, isn't it, that there are actually lots and lots of leads, but actually how you deal with the massive leads and get to the quality ones is a critical factor for most businesses.
Absolutely.
So other than obviously I can see confidentiality being a really key element there, are there other benefits for the sellers as well, for the vendor?
Well, the vendor obviously gets the opportunity to see the buyer interest ahead of engaging with estate agents, or even once they've engaged with the agent, but they haven't actually formally instructed the agent at that point. So the prospective vendor is getting a bit of pre-marketing. They're a little bit ahead of the game than they otherwise would be. They can see the buyer interest for themselves, and they can make their own decision as to when they come on board. And essentially, the buyer interest is the prompter to actually get vendors on board sooner rather than later. If you know that you've got 5 buyers all lined up, ready and waiting to go, you probably get your house in order a little bit quicker and get moving on it and instruct the agent. So it's all about moving everything along for the agent in many ways, but it's to the benefit of the seller and the buyer at the same time.
And you had a fantastic launch this week on social as well, didn't you? And on the main websites there, and as ever, people were charging in as usual, as they always do with disruptive charges. There was a couple of main challenges, weren't there, that I wanted to raise your attention there. The first one was one that a couple of people mentioned was, well, what about that whole point about obviously, getting it out there before we've done the deal, before we've actually signed them up? How do you answer that sort of concern?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a misunderstanding of the site itself in many ways. The buyers are anonymous, the sellers are anonymous, the agents are anonymous, and the properties are anonymous. So we don't show the properties with any agency banners around them or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
So the properties are shown with only a partial address, and if it's a customer added property, they have 3 internal photographs added to the site. Now we have a moderation step before they get published. We don't want, naked bodies. We don't want well, I'll be okay on the admin dashboard, but I'll be doing double shift on there. We don't want customers on there with the placard with the mobile phone number saying please buy me or anything of that nature. And we don't. And what we don't want is we don't want external photos either. So it's 3 internal photos, partial property address, so the town and the first part of the postcode, and that gives the buyer sufficient information to know it's in the general area that they're looking for. It's on, with the price bracket and the details, etc. So it's all about marketing for interest, not about marketing for sale at that point. So that's a pre-market situation, and there's no agency banner around it or anything. If an agent has added the property, though, it does have an agent verified tick on it to say this property has been market appraised. So so it's identifying between a customer added property and an agency added property. And agencies, by the way, agencies also get added elements to the listing as well. So they can put in a district identifier onto the property address. They get to put on a little bit of property description, not a great deal, but a bit.
Yeah.
And they also have the opportunity essentially to add 6 internal photos rather than 3. So it's all about enhancing the customer listing. So the whole point of the process, if you like, if a customer has added their property onto the site, when they've got buyer interest, it pushes them towards getting a market appraisal from the agents anyway, because their listing can be enhanced by the agent going out and doing a market appraisal.
Okay, Max, thank you very again. Have a great week.
Okay, thanks, Simon.